Good afternoon. My name is Mike Kraus. I'm an Assistant Deputy Executive Officer in our Planning and Rules Division here at the South Coast AQMD. Welcome to our 2025 Autobody Shop Workshop. Some general housekeeping for those few in the room here. The bathrooms are down the hallway to the left, and we do ask that no one brings in any food or drink except water. Would be much appreciated. Okay, let's start with a little housekeeping. If you care to hear this event in Spanish, click the globe at the bottom of the screen, and the menu will pop up giving the options of English or Spanish. Please pick one. We are hosting this event live here at the Dr. William A. Burke Auditorium at our headquarters here in Diamond Bar, California. And we are also remote access via Zoom. And if I could just get Pedro to come up go ahead.
Yeah, from here. I'm going to translate this portion for those that are on Zoom. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Michael Croft, soy director ejecutivo adjunto de la División de Planificación y Normativas y le doy la bienvenida al taller de carrocería del 2025. Algunas indicaciones generales. Este evento se lleva a cabo en vivo en el auditorio Dr. William Burke en la sede central de South Coast AQMD en Diamond Bar, California. Y también se transmite en línea a través de Zoom. Si desea escuchar este evento en español, haga clic en el icono del globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla y aparecerá un menú con las opciones de inglés y español. Seleccione una de ellas.
Great. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Pedro, for that. Okay. The agenda and the presentations that we're providing today are posted online in both English and Spanish. Our presenters will be both in person as well as on Zoom. We will have time to answer questions, but please wait until the presenters are finished with their presentation. We look forward to a productive, informative, and exciting workshop. Okay, by way of introduction, this workshop was born out of community ideas from South Los Angeles as well as East LA, Boyle Heights, and West Commerce to enlighten and educate on requirements and recommendations for body shop owners and processes. We've got a full agenda today. You're going to hear from our staff here at the South Coast AQMD on air quality regulations, as well as hazardous waste management from LA County Fire Department, as well as the Department of Toxic Substances Control. Just to call out, unfortunately, our friends at the Regional Water Quality Control Board were unable to attend today. However, we will have a slide for folks regarding stormwater requirements and proper practices. To start us off on our journey this afternoon, let me introduce you to one of our South LA Community Steering Committee co-leads. I assume Stephanie is with us? Okay, sounds great. Stephanie Garcia. Now, Ms. Garcia is an air quality outreach and education associate at Physicians for Social Responsibility. Some folks know it as PSR, Los Angeles. And she grew up in Southeast LA. Stephanie's role accomplishes bringing communities together to create livable spaces we all deserve. In her role, she's able to bridge that connection between partner organizations, people, and causes. She attended the University of Southern California and studied public policy with a minor in gender and social justice. Stephanie will now provide us an overview of their work and goals with their community emission reduction plans, or otherwise known as SERPs. Okay, let's bring Stephanie up. Stephanie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Garcia. Thank you for that introduction. Wondering if we can move on to the next slide. For folks joining from South LA, this is part of our SERP, as it was mentioned before. More specifically, it's part of Chapter 5 of our SERP actions, or also known as objectives. So for folks who are curious of like, what does this meeting have to do with our SERP? It is part of the auto body shop section where AQMD will collaborate with partner agencies, which we'll be presenting today, to conduct an auto body workshop for CSC members in South LA, but also CSC members in Southeast LA, describing applicable rules and regulations. A little about the permitting process and enforcement efforts that are happening in these areas around auto body shops. And if you're curious to read a little bit more about the auto body shops section, or have questions about the auto body shops objective and actions, please feel free to click the link on the right.
And what you see right now on the screen is ways you can participate here at the workshop today. As you can see, there's various ways to do this, of virtual raising your hand, clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of the Zoom. You can share your questions on chat, or you can send an email to that address there, ab617@aqmd.gov. Okay. I think we can move on here. So I'm going to introduce you to our two moderators. Both are planning and rules managers here at the South Coast AQMD. First up, Heather Farr. She is, again, a planning and rules manager. Her current responsibilities include developing rules to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions from commercial and residential building appliances, as well as toxic solvents using coatings, as well as solvents that we're discussing today. Heather's also worked on reducing NOx emissions from petroleum refineries, refinery flares, non-refinery flares, as well as commercial bakery ovens, et cetera. Another area that she focuses on, another important constituent of our ozone pollution problem, VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. And she's worked on a number of rules reducing VOC emissions from coatings and solvents, as well as controlling particulate matter emissions, another problem in our region, from metal recycling operations, as well as fence line monitoring for refineries and related operations. So that is Heather Farr. You'll see her here. Okay, there we go. All right, next up, Mike Morris. Now, Mike, again, is a planning and rules manager. His current responsibilities include developing rules that address nitrogen oxide emissions from combustion equipment, as well as toxic air contaminants. He's leading the team transitioning our reclaim program into command and control regulatory structures, and addresses associated new source review issues. Mike has also worked on coatings, adhesives, paints and thinners, consumer products, and metalworking fluid regulations. So again, we want to welcome Heather and Mike here to moderate the continuing part of our program today. Take it away.
Thank you, Michael. So Heather Farr, Planning and Rules Manager, get us started on the AQMD portion of the presentations today. The topics that we are going to discuss, we're going to touch a little bit on the background of VOCs. Then Chris will talk about Autobody shop and associated emissions. We'll talk about some other rules and Autobody shop regulations. And then Sarah will cover some best practices and housekeeping before we move on to other departments outside of the planning, rules, and area sources team. Next slide, please. Just by way of background, a little background on air quality and ozone formation when it comes to like our summer smog problems. The main ingredients to that are oxide of nitrogen, or NOx, as well as the volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. The problem is really exacerbated by our lovely warm climate that we enjoy in Southern California, as well as the topography, the low-lying ocean on the west, and then surrounded by oceans really creates an inversion layer, which traps in those pollutants, really leading to the worst air quality in the nation, meaning unhealthful air quality for the state's second highest population. Next slide, please. When it comes to the volatile organic compounds, I won't read out what that definition is, but they're like different solvents that are used in things like coatings or cleaning products. They do have varying degrees of photochemical reactivity, meaning some contribute more to ground level ozone or smog than others. There are other sources of VOC emissions, including motor vehicles. What we'll talk about a lot today is auto body shop coatings, as well as cleaning solvents, in addition to consumer products, industrial products, and biogenics like trees and flowers also contribute VOCs to our region. Next slide, please. This slide is just showing the different levels of VOC emissions in our region. Really, the largest source are consumer products, mostly because there's just so many of them that are used within the region. But next to that is cleaning and surface coatings, which does include those emissions from auto body shops. There are other emissions included in that as well, but that is a large part of that is from the auto body shops. Then just also shows petroleum, waste disposal, industrial processes, architectural coatings, etc. Next slide, please. Now we will get into the auto body shop and associated emissions. Next slide.
All right, our first speaker is going to be Christopher Bradley. Chris is an air quality specialist for the South Coast AQMD. His current responsibilities including developing rules to phase out the use of toxic solvents in coatings and other VOC-containing materials. Chris has also worked on commercial cooking equipment regulation, and was an inspector for our agency prior to joining the rule development team. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. All right, to begin with some background on emissions from auto body shops, there are two main sources of emissions from auto body shops. The first being from automotive paint and coatings, which are regulated under our Rule 1151. And the second being the materials used to clean coating application equipment, which are regulated under our Rule 1171. These emissions are mostly made up of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which come from solvents used in coatings and solvent clean materials and contribute to ground level smog, which is why they are of concern to our agency. These emissions are can also contain toxic air contaminants, which come from certain solvents that are used in coatings and solvent cleaning materials. Next slide, please. All right. And South Coast AQMD has approximately 3,000 auto body shops in our jurisdiction, many of which are located near residences and often clustered in overburdened communities. Next slide, please. All right. And the estimated auto body VOC emissions in South Coast AQMD is approximately 2.47 tons per day coming from auto body coatings, and approximately 3.6 tons per day that come from solvent cleaning materials. It's important to note that this total amount represents the entire universe of emissions from solvent cleaning materials. The materials used in auto body shops are only a small segment of this total. Next slide, please. All right. So to jump into our Rule 1151, which covers automotive refinishing coatings. Some background on 1151. The rule was adopted on July 8th of 1988 and was last amended on November 1st of 2024. The rule applies to all motor vehicle and mobile equipment, non-assembly line coating operations. The purpose of this rule is to reduce VOC and toxic emissions from automotive coatings. Next slide. All right. So during the recent amendment, staff evaluated the VOC content limits of each coating category and the extent of the usage of two exempt toxic compounds, those being perchlorobenzyl trifluoride and tert-butyl acetate. Staff worked to consider the best approach to phase out the use of both of these compounds as quickly as practical. Next slide, please. All right. So some background on exempt compounds. So the US EPA exempts certain compounds and solvents that don't contribute to smog formation. However, when they designate the exempt status, they don't take into consideration toxicity. Some key exempt compounds are acetone and PCBTF and TBAC. When South Coast AQMD considers whether or not to exempt a compound or solvent, we do take into consideration whether or not the US EPA exempts them, but we also take into consideration toxicity, potential ozone depletion, and other environmental impacts. South Coast AQMD groups exempt compounds into two groups. The first group of exempt compounds are those that are not expected to be restricted in the future. The second group are often prohibited in our VOC rules due to either toxicity or other environmental impacts. Next slide, please. All right. So some background on the regulatory history of PCBTF and TBAC. In 1994 and 1995, the US EPA exempted PCBTF due to its low photochemical reactivity, and South Coast AQMD followed suit the following year. In 2004 and 2006, the US EPA exempted TBAC as a VOC, and South Coast AQMD included a limited exemption in the food rules. It was not granted a full exemption status. 2015, and just to backtrack, actually, it wasn't granted full exemption status because staff did have some concerns over toxicity for TBAC. In 2015, staff drafted an assessment that showed TBAC as a potential carcinogen. And in 2017, staff presented this assessment to the Stationary Source Committee, who directed staff to prioritize lowering toxicity over VOC emission reductions. Following year in 2018, the TBAC assessment, OEHA's TBAC assessment concluded, and they concluded that it posed a potential cancer risk to humans. And 2020, OEHA's assessment of PCBTF was concluded, and they concluded that it posed an even greater risk to humans than TBAC. Next slide, please. So some of South Coast AQMD's actions taken to date to address PCBTF, and TBAC included the amendment of 3 rules with future effective phase outs of both these compounds. Those rules are Rule 1168, which covers our adhesives and sealants. This rule is amended in 2022. Next is 1151, which covers our automotive coatings. This rule is amended in 2024. And our Rule 1171, which has to do with solvent cleaning operations, which was amended in 2025. We do have 3 other coating rules currently undergoing amendment, 2 actually. Rule 1107 was actually recently amended. 1124, which has to do with aerospace coatings and operations, is currently undergoing amendment, as well as our Rule 1136, which covers wood products coatings. We also have conducted a manufacturer survey for a series of other VOC rules to assess the extent of usage of PCBTF and TBAC and across other industries. Next slide, please. All right. So here's a visual overview of the phase-out approach for PCBTF and TBAC in Rule 1151. Staff sought to phase out of toxic exempt compounds in auto body shops as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, or I should backtrack a little bit. So in order to phase out of the use of automotive coatings that contain PCBTF and TBAC as quickly as possible, staff temporarily raised VOC limits in order to allow for the use of auto body coatings that are used outside of California. That is due to them being regulated under a different regulation that has higher VOC limits. And because they're subject to those higher VOC limits, they generally don't contain PCBTF or TBAC, since those exempt compounds aren't needed to comply with those higher limits. So this temporary raise in VOC limits will allow for the quick switch out and switch over to those national rule products and provide manufacturers time to reformulate to meet lower VOC limits in the future without the use of TBAC or PCBTF. Next slide, please. So the phase-out approach for TBAC and PCBTF and automotive coatings is broken down to 2 phases. The first phase beginning in November of 2024, when the temporarily higher VOC limits become effective in order to allow the use of those national rule products that have the higher VOC content but don't contain PCBTF or TBAC to be used within South Coast AQMD. And phase 1 will continue until 2027, during which there'll also be a sell-through period and a use-through period for those coatings that are already in the supply chain in South Coast AQMD to be sold and used. And during that time, manufacturers will work to reformulate to meet those lower feature effective VOC limits without the use of TBAC and PCBTF. And phase 2 will begin in 2028 and span into 2033. From 2028 to 2030, VOC limits will be brought back down, and those higher VOC coatings will be allowed to be sold and used until 2023 that are already in the supply chain in South Coast AQMD. Next slide, please. All right. And this is what that looks like in our rule language. You'll see in the middle column, those are the phase one VOC limits. Like I mentioned, those are the coatings that are used and sold outside of California. Those limits are to accommodate the use of those products. You'll see over on the right-hand side, the phase two VOC limits and their respective effective dates, which will vary by coating category. You'll see they can be as early as January 1st of 2028 and as late as January 1st of 2030. Next slide, please. All right. So just a quick summary on the emission impacts during those two phases. During phase one, when those VOC limits are raised, temporarily raised, there will be also a temporary increase in VOC emissions as well. However, there will be a phase out of the emissions of TBAC and PCBTF. During phase two, as VOC limits are decreased, VOC emissions will also decrease. All right, next slide. All right. So just to go into a little more detail on the prohibition timeline for PCBTF and TBAC. Most Autobody coatings, with the exception of color coatings that contain PCBTF and TBAC that are manufactured after May of 2025, may no longer be sold for use within South Coast AQMD. However, those coatings that are manufactured prior to May 25 can continue to be sold until May 2026 and used until July 2027. Color coatings, on the other hand, that do contain PCBTF and TBAC that are manufactured after November 2025 can no longer be sold for use within South Coast AQMD. However, color coatings manufactured prior to November 2025 can continue to be sold through the supply chain until November of 2028 and used until January of 2028. Staff anticipates the use of PCBTF and TBAC containing coatings to be fully eliminated by January of 2028. Next slide, please. All right. So now to transition to our Rule 1171, which covers solvent cleaning operations. Next slide. Some background on Rule 1171. This rule was adopted on August 2nd of 1991 and was last amended in June 6th, 2025. This rule applies to the users and suppliers of solvent cleaning materials that are used as part of a business or public service and applies to a wide array of industries. The purpose of this rule is to limit the VOC and toxic emissions from solvent cleaning operations. Next slide. So at Autobody shops, the main concern with respect to 1171 is the materials used to clean their coating application equipment, specifically their spray guns. Staff found very limited use of TBAC and PCBTF in these materials, and as a result is proposing to quickly phase out of the use of any solvent clean materials that contain PCBTF or TBAC. The prohibition effective date in this rule begins on January 1st of 2026 and allows a 1.5-year sell-through period for those materials that may contain PCBTF or TBAC and that are already in the supply chain, and a 2.5 use of those materials at the shop level from the prohibition effective date. Next slide, please. So a key difference in 1171 from 1151 is that we're going to be able to phase out the use of TBAC and PCBTF without increasing VOC limits. With respect to the automotive finishing industry, acetone is mostly used for solvent cleaning. So there wasn't that great of concern for TBAC and PCBTF containing materials by the industry for this rule. Next slide, please. All right, so some staff's conclusions from the recent Autobody shop rule amendments. We found that toxic emissions have decreased significantly and will continue to decrease as materials in the supply chain continue to be sold and used. And VOC emissions from coatings will decrease as reformulated products are introduced into the market. And from there, we'll transition into the best management practices and housekeeping practices at Autobody shops.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for that presentation on those two important rules of ours. Again, we have a rule that's regulating auto body shop coatings, and we've also incorporated a number of other best practices, which we're going to get there in a moment, as well as on our solvent cleaning side. These are both really actively used out there in the auto body shop world. But why don't we take a stop for a moment and just see if there's anybody who's got any questions. Again, if you're on the Zoom, you can click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you happen to be here in the room, our good friends here in the room, we do have a microphone that Emily has. If you happen to have a question, just raise your hand. She's more than happy to get over there to you. She needs her steps. Okay. And you could also hit chat. You could also email ab617@aqmd.gov. So, and you could also, if you think about that, while Sarity's giving his portion of the presentation, we're more than open for that too. We'll take a look at that.
We do have a hand online if you would like me to allow them to unmute.
Wow, yes, exciting. Let's do it.
Okay, Barbara Calhoun, you should be able to unmute your line.
Barbara,
you
if you
go.
could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Barbara Calhoun. I'm a CSP member. I see somebody has already asked that question in the chat. Albert Ochoa requested that the presentation be sent to him. I was looking for the presentation. I guess I was in the wrong section. So I always like to have the presentation emailed to me instead of trying to figure out y'all website. So how can I said that was a little chuckle. I heard that.
Yeah, we did send out the email with the links, I believe, just yesterday on this presentation.
But Albert actually is one of the AQMD staff, and he did add a link to the presentations in the chat. So you should be able to click in there and get to all the different presentations.
Okay, so that's the link. That's the link to it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just asking a question for my benefit. So for now on, I need to go to the website and go to the link whenever we have a meeting and somebody is giving a presentation. I need to do that myself. I'm just trying to verify so I don't keep asking this question. Just asking.
So it's a great question. So yes, for all of our presentations, and not just something like in this setting as well, we do have our rule development, working group presentations. Yes, those are all available online. Obviously, they're going to be set up in a particular web page dedicated for that particular rule. But yes, we do make those available. And we also do send them out in advance as well. So they can be posted so folks could actually check them out before the meeting and help them derive some questions that they may have during the meeting. So yes.
If we did send an email out on Friday with the presentations that were available at that time, we have received additional ones since Friday. So those are all available on our webpage.
Okay, I didn't see it. I didn't receive the email. I went through my personal email. I didn't receive it. So I just clicked on what Mr. Ochoa was saying. And it says flyer English, flyer Spanish, agenda. What am I clicking on to get that slide?
This particular one, I believe we call it the South Coast AQMD regulation, air quality regulations.
Okay, shop regulations. That's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Thank
right.
you so
And then
much.
after that, we'll be moving on to the other presentation, but click on that one. That's where we're at right now. So, and I believe, can we get a slide number? Give me a number.
No, I got it. I found
Not
the
gonna
present.
match.
Yeah, that's okay. I found it. The fire department, the toxic substance, and Bureau of
Right.
Automotive Repair. I will click on
There you
that and
go.
print them out myself. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And we
great.
are
You got
on
it.
slide 26 if you're following along with the ones that are posted online.
Great. 26 it is. Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, let's continue on to best management practices. Sarity, take it away.
Let me introduce Sarity. Sarity Kaw is a program supervisor for the South Coast AQMD. His current responsibilities include developing VOC rules focusing on phasing out the use of toxic solvents in coatings and other VOC-containing materials. He's helped lead the implementation of NOx emission reduction strategies at petroleum refineries and related operations. Sarity has also worked on refinery and non-refinery flares, commercial cooking equipment, and mobile fueling operation regulations. Sarity worked at General Electric prior to joining our agency. Sarity?
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to get into some best management practice for auto body shops. For auto body shops, this may be a refresher since during the rulemaking, we did conduct some site visits to the facilities, and we saw many were already doing these practices as they prepare cars for paint or coating operations. So this may be a refresher, but for those in the community, EPA does provide some best management practices for some key areas, such as sanding, coating applications, such as when they're in the spray booth, and just cleaning of the spray guns too, which is the primary tool for applying most of these coatings in a auto body shop setting. And then maintenance on the booth, much like anything, any equipment that we use does require maintenance because there will be filter change outs and things like that that are involved. So next slide, please. And one of the key areas of auto repairs is sanding. Sanding is prepping. In order to get a good paint job, you typically have to do a lot of sanding with various grits of sandpaper, sanding the primer, just getting the best preparation ready so you do get the best finish. Because we do all want a good finish on our cars and vehicles. So sanding is an important step, and it's done everywhere in most shops, but some key best management practices is the use of a sander, where we see some shops, they have the sanders. These electric or automatic sanders, I'll call them, is they have a built-in vacuum system where as you're sanding, they suck up all the debris, all the sanding particulates into the vacuum so they don't get exposed or they fly in the air. Respirators, everything we see them use, so minimize worker exposure. So many of the shops do have some type of sanding practices. And wet sanding is another important thing. It's where you're sanding the surface wet, typically done in color sanding, color matching, getting that shiny finish at the end. Typically involves wet sanding, so that's another way to minimize dust release into the air. So those are some key areas to minimize the fugitive dust that can be hazardous if proper PPE is not used. Next slide, please.
Okay, before we go on, we do have a hand, so we can pause and Ruth, you should be able to unmute yourself. I can't hear you yet. You should be able to unmute your line though. Oh. Okay, we're working on translation.
Give us 1 second. Our translators.
I don't think none of us go to the.
This is Ratney.
Oh, sorry, we had another hand up as well. SLA Com R. Andrews. If you want to unmute if you had a question.
Sorry about that. I hit mute by accident. That was an accident.
No worries. Sorry about that for everybody online. We're still working on translation.
Just a couple seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Lo
Ruth,
que-
if you have a question. Ruth?
Oh,
Mi
here we go.
pregunta es esa, y aparte tengo otra pregunta. ¿Qué pasa con estas personas que aunque no
We lost your.
Ruth, no lo escuchamos. ¿Puede repetir la pregunta, por favor?
O sea, ¿usted no me está interpretando?
Sí, aquí están interpretando, pero es que no escuchamos o sea, toda la pregunta, se cortó la señal,
¿Hola?
supongo. ¿Hola? ¿Se me escucha? Creo que no tiene buena señal. No, they can't hear.
Ok, no voy a repetir varias veces porque usted por eso está interpretando, ¿verdad? Si no, pues entonces podría poner a la otra persona que interpreta, porque yo la verdad siento que usted no interpreta bien.
No,
Bueno,
no. O sea,
mi
es que
pregunta es
no.
que esas carrocerías, ¿cómo saber nosotros que estamos en la comunidad que tengan un aviso como por ejemplo de peligro para la comunidad? Esas partículas, porque hay carrocerías cerca de la escuela, cerca de clínicas, cerca de lo que es también restaurantes. Pero yo en sí nunca he visto un rótulo donde diga, oh, está al 100% garantizado que está cubierto. Y esta
So,
carrocería está en la Washington y Union.
so I'll translate what Ruth just said. So
También aparte de eso,
requested-
tengo otra pregunta. ¿Qué pasa con estas personas que no trabajan o no tienen el lugar perfecto para trabajar? Estas personas que cambian aceite a los carros. Le digo porque ya el año pasado, de hecho, lo comenté, en la 28 y la Main, donde está Hunter Rallies, ese Rallies y con las personas que son mecánicos, hacen cambio de aceite, o sea, hacen todos los carros, menos pintura. Pero he mirado que este aceite que tiran cuando hacen cambio, no, ni siquiera le ponen arena. Y hay bastantes carros estacionados para poder cambiarles el aceite y no hay parking para la comunidad. Entonces, lo único que este Rallies les presta son los domingos el parqueadero de ellos. Entonces, lo que veo aquí que cuál es entonces el enfoque de que deberíamos de hacer nosotros como comunidad. Sí hemos reportado, pero al final no se hace nada.
Thank you for the comment and the question. Just to kind of set the record straight, we're discussing auto body shops that coat vehicles. What you're referring to, I think, is more of like a garage activity.
Automotive repair, I believe. is
Thank
what she
you.
said.
Automotive repair. Great. Thank you, Sarity. And a lot of those oils, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, are more of these consumer product types, right? Are they, they're not under these rules. Let's put it that way.
No, they're not regulated under these rules,
So-
no.
But it is an interesting question, and I do think you probably should, if you see someone do illegal dumping, there are government entities out there that do regulate those and should be
Bureau of
alerted.
Automotive repair.
And maybe the Bureau of Automotive Repair will touch on that. Chris's presentation coming up.
Yes, I think some of our later speakers will touch on those types of things of how proper disposal and handling of materials and things like that. So I think stay tuned. We might be able to answer some of those questions a little bit later in this presentation.
Mike?
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I'll continue with the best management practice. One important area is spray painting. A lot of this is done with the spray gun, typically in a spray booth. These spray booths are designed for certain flow rates, operated a certain way, and most of them are required to have exhaust filters. So the filters ensures that there's no overspray going out. So it helps capture a lot of the overspray in the spray booths. And these filters are required to be changed out every so often. And one interesting fact when we did the rule development is a lot of our paint suppliers and manufacturers, such as the big names like PPG, Axo Nobel, they do provide technical support for optimal spray booth operations too. So they're also a good source of information too, if you do contract with some of these paint suppliers. So spray booth is an important area, but require use of filters, and spraying in there is an important factor in best management practice. Next slide, please. And then spray gun cleaning is another area, since it is the primary tool of applications from primers, adhesion promoters to base coats. Cleaning of the spray gun is very important too in obtaining the best finish. So many of them, like Chris mentioned earlier, use acetone as a cleaner. There's some may have enclosed units, more elaborate setups that clean the guns for them, even some automatic cleaning of the guns, disassembly of the guns. There's proper methods. The manufacturers of the guns do specify cleaning certain ways depending on tip size and things like that. So cleaning of the guns is important, and controlling the waste too is also important, because they do contain solvents, and some paints do contain metallics. So it is important to keep the guns clean and good operating order while not emitting a lot of VOCs and waste out into the environment. Next slide, please.
We're going to pause again. We do have another hand. Barbara Calhoun's hand is up again. You should be able to unmute yourself.
I just have a question, and you can answer it later. When this is the second time about auto body shops coming up, there were a lot of questions asked at the last one, and I don't ever remember receiving any answers to any of the questions that I asked when we had the meeting the last time, and it was about what you're talking about now. So maybe somebody can answer that question later on, either at the end or whatever happened to the questions and why we have not received the answers. That's all.
Thank you, Barbara. We'll look into what those questions were. Thank you.
And like I mentioned earlier, maintenance of spray booths, removing overspray particles and mist, because when you do spray, you are technically atomizing, or you are atomizing the paint in order to get the best laydown, if you will, for the paint. And you need adequate filter replacement. There is a cycle. They're consumables. They do get used, they get plugged up. So those need to be changed and disposed of properly too. So, and again, the booth manufacturer will specify the intervals for these filter change outs. So it's important to maintain a schedule, maintain a log of those. But most of the body shops we visited do this already. They do keep notes, they do keep records of when it's changed out. So. And one important thing is understanding the flow too. A manometer is also important to make sure that there's flow going out. It's a good indicator if there's some restriction or pressure drop across the filters too. Next slide, please. And the important thing is the hazardous waste, because we are dealing with solvents and a lot of hazardous material. It is important to store them correctly. Some of the materials are combustible, so it's important.
You see your mints, Brian?
And it's also to probably store of it. Make sure the spent exhaust filter is disposed of properly. The gun cleaning cups are cleaned properly and disposed of in the proper containers. Oily rags are kept in containers so they can be disposed of properly too, because having them exposed can also lead, when they get wet, can down to our waste or water stream or stormwater systems. Next slide, please. And speaking of stormwater, each auto body shop, they're subject to regional stormwater regulations. At a shop, after a car is finished painting, generally they'll go ahead, they'll clean them up, they'll wash them down. There could be some debris on there, and that can go into the stormwater system. So there are some practices that most shops are doing are currently doing is basically allowing or vacuuming any of the dust particles, sanding, sweeping, rather than hosing it down. Even though hosing is easier, sometimes it's better to sweep so we don't get a lot of contaminants down into the water and they drain into our stormwater system. And all metal filings, like I said, a lot of sanding, a lot of prep work goes into painting, grinding, shaving. When you're doing body work that involves a lot of damage, high-end repairs, you'll be sanding a lot of metal. So filing dust, paint chips, things like that can be swept and collected and properly disposed of too. And then have a good response plan to spills, because accidents, spills do happen. It's just the nature of things and businesses and how they operate. But to have a good plan and good employee training is also important. And then never discard waste into our sewer system just because they can contain toxic or hazardous materials. And here, just in the picture, visual representation areas for LA County, that it's subject to different regional stormwater regulations. 8 Orange County, you can see the Inland Empire is different. So it's important for shops to make sure and aware of their local regulations too. Next slide, please. And just a brief touch on the enforcement process too. Next slide. And for those body shops that were fortunate enough to be inspected by our inspectors, they're familiar with this process. But for those that aren't aware, typically our inspectors show up unannounced. They show up at a body shop, and typically inspectors assigned to a region or area. So they'll do inspection as part of their general list of shops. If there's a complaint, they'll respond to that. So, but typically what happens when an inspector shows up at a shop is they'll typically meet with the shop owner or the most operations, typically the shop manager or somebody that's in charge. And they expect things like spray booths, because spray booths are permitted. They do require a permit from us, not just the local fire department, but they do require a permit for us because they do emit some mist and some air overspray and things like that that can potentially go out into the atmosphere. So Haman will go into that later as part of the permitting process, but there is an evaluation of most spray booths that do require a permit and the types of coatings used, the solvent cleaning materials. Our inspectors look at the labeling, which is why labeling is so important and on most of our containers, and typically how we regulate, whether it's the grams per liter limit. Our inspectors rely on that as they go into the shops to make sure compliant coatings are being used. And then they look at records too. That's an important thing too, records of use. Most shops are typically required to keep records of how much is sprayed and what is used, because it's typically part of their permit condition. And just to make sure that they're complying with all South Coast rules that apply to them, such as 1151 or our solvent cleaning operations. And then if necessary, if there is a violation, typically our enforcement staff are nice people, so they'll issue a notice to comply, just letting the shop know, hey, you want to probably take care of this. And if it's really serious, that's where they'll get what we call NOV, a notice of violation. Next slide, please. And then here's just our contact information. Chris, our rule writer for 1151 and 1171. Me, program supervisor, Michael Kraus, the gentleman leading this over there. And then Heather Farr, planning and rules manager. So this is our contact. Anybody, any questions about the rule, any concerns or anything, feel free to reach out to us. And I believe that concludes my section.
Great. So, Sarah, if I could just jump in, I see that there was somebody who written in the chat asking something I believe you just answered about how do we make sure that those paint shops are complying or making the changes that they're required to do. And we do have a full enforcement team. They do go out, they do make those random checks as noted on the slide. And they do have what we call our ticket book. And they come back over a period of time. They give them a certain period of time, like a week or two, whatever, to put something back in shape and come back. And if they haven't done that, then there's violations. And those violations could go up to about like $25,000 a day for those violations. So it's not something small, and it's something I do believe people, knowing that punishment, so to speak, take seriously.
And then just kind of to add to that, as we've changed our rules with these phase-outs of PCBTF, when the inspectors go into the shop, they won't just be looking to make sure that VOC limits are being complied with. They'll also be making sure that those PCBTF-based products are not on the shelves. So they have to have a whole list of things that they do check when they go out into the field and into those auto body shops.
If there is some questions too, they do check in with the rules team. Chris was actually a formal inspector too, so they did check with us.
We did have a second question on how do we know if they're using what they say they're properly using if they don't open the door to the CSC members to see. And again, I think this goes back to the AQMD inspectors that are out in the field. They have to open the doors for us to ensure that they're using compliant products.
There's another question. Is it required to have gun cleaners at shops? Yes, that is part of the rule for 1171. And how often should they be changing the filters if they paint 10 cars a week? That is variable. It depends on how much they're actually painting on a car. Sometimes it's just a little small portion of it. So as Sarah mentioned, they do have manometers on the filters that tells them when the filters need to be changed out. And so that's why we require them, and they should be paying attention to when those the readings don't show up right, and then that's when they change out the filters.
And it looks like we also got a comment from Guadalupe Rivas. And Guadalupe seems very concerned, and she should be, about the dust in the paint that sands off the cars and goes down the drains and the clogs, etc. We will be touching on stormwater. We do have a slide on that, I believe, coming up. Or did you passed that one, right?
We already did.
That. So yes, there is an agency that does that regulation, and they do follow that accordingly to the law. So let's move on, okay, to our next speaker. And this time I won't introduce him prematurely. I'll go let Mike do that.
Great. Our next speaker is Hamang Desai. He's a supervising air quality engineer for our agency. Hamang's current responsibilities including supervising the engineering team responsible for processing permit applications, for spray booths operating at auto body shops, furniture manufacturing facilities, and metal coating shops. Hamang started his career at the South Coast AQMD in 1991 as an assistant air quality engineer in permitting, working on a variety of air pollution sources. Hamang, take it away.
Thank you, Mike. Today I'm going to go over the overview of the permitting procedures to permit an auto body spray booth. A company that wants to operate a spray booth in an auto body shop will require a permit from us. For that, the company will be submitting permit application along with the permitting fees and other relevant information like safety data sheets, technical data sheets of the products that are being used in that spray booth. After the application comes in the district, it is assigned to an engineer who will then perform the engineering evaluation based on the information submitted. He or she does emission calculations and also make sure that all the rules, applicable rules as described before, like 1151, 1171, our Rule 1401 toxic rules are met. After evaluating the rules and requirements, we write a permit which will have equipment description and permit conditions to ensure that the facility operates the spray booth according to the conditions specified on the permit. After then we issue the permit to the company. Next slide, please. As described before, we have these equipment that is a source of air pollution, like paint spray booth, open spray equipment that will need a permit from us, from AQMD. However, there are some exceptions in our Rule 219, which are has emission potential of low emission potential or some regulatory jurisdiction like consumer products or mobile sources we don't have jurisdiction over. So that one, other air contaminants besides the ones that were described by in the earlier slides, We also have air toxics with our rule with the toxic metals and inorganic, which are sometimes are part of the coatings that are used in the auto body shops. Next slide, please. So for the permit evaluation, we as we evaluate the application, like I mentioned, we do emission calculations. We particularly pay attention to our rules, 1151, 1171, toxics rule. Also, we make sure that if the facility is near a school, within 1,000 feet, we notify the neighboring community and the students of parents of the students that attend that particular school. We also base our evaluation on the safety data sheets and the technical data sheets that are provided for the products that are being used in the booth. After we develop permit limits and operating conditions for that particular spray booth, we do that because to ensure compliance with our regulatory limits and requirements. And we also communicate with the facilities to make them aware that these are going to be your permit conditions and your solvent usage, and if any toxics limitations. And like earlier mentioned, we have our compliance staff who does air quality unannounced inspections to make sure that the booth is operating in a good condition and according to the permit conditions. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Our next speaker, do we have any questions?
Before we
or
do that, I
comments?
believe we might have another hand raised. Is that true, Heather?
Yep.
Okay. You can.
Sí, soy de nuevo otra vez. A la pregunta que tengo, si estos inspectores han inspeccionado y saben qué carrocerías están aprobadas, nos gustaría,
We would
como
like
comité de CSI,
if you can decide,
que nos manden esa
please
lista
send us a list of the shops that are approved
en el sur de Los Ángeles para
in
así
South
mismo,
LA
cuando nosotros
so
hagamos
that
el mapa,
we have this our map.
ya sepamos cuáles
We
son
are
esas
aware
ferreterías que están ya asignadas, que tienen
which
ese
are the
permiso.
shops that are assigned that are in compliance with these permits.
Para poder nosotros
So
también
that we can
guiarnos
have a guide,
y poder proceder ese
and that way
trabajo más rápido.
we can do this job faster.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. We do have a list
Gracias
of
por
those
esa
permitted
pregunta.
facilities as was shown on that map on the slide that we presented. We can compile that for the facilities within the South LA region.
Las instalaciones en el área del sur de Los Ángeles.
Great.
Muy bien.
We
We have
hand
a question in
raised
the room.
in the room.
Tenemos otra
If you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Kristen, and I work as a permit expediter, so I have dealt with many of you before in the past. I'm just curious if the AQMD is going to start requiring SDS and TDS to be supplied for all submittals. There have been kind of conflicting, like it's going to become regulation or standard for all submittals for any type of coatings for spray booths. So I'm just curious if you could clear that.
In order to evaluate the application, we would like to have that. Yes. The short answer is yes.
Clear. And then as far as the application procedure and the documents that are required to be supplied for that, if we are able to provide, the necessary things like site plan, equipment drawings, things like that, is there any additional types of drawings that are going to be required for the, 400 PS, the stack applications, is there any additional drawings that are going to be required?
It depends, but mainly we look for the health risk assessment. We look at the stack height, the diameter, and the way how the stack is, like the butterfly damper or rain cap on the stack. So that information is required, and then also the proximity to the nearest buildings or residential areas.
And then just listing that, like as far as distances on the application would be sufficient, or do we need lines of sight in the future?
We can generate, based on the location of so it's not critical, but with all the Google Maps and all, we can, we have good idea to, figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next introduction.
All right.
Thank you, Mom. Good job.
Our next speaker is Marvin Ignacio. He's an experienced air quality engineer for the South Coast AQMD Small Business Assistance Office, dedicated to providing crucial technical assistance to small businesses throughout the South Coast Basin. Marvin's current responsibilities is to serve as a liaison, providing technical assistance to small businesses throughout our basin. Marvin's expertise covers permit application assistance, rule interpretation, and compliance assistance with our rules and regulations. He started his career at South Coast AQMD in 2005. Prior to that, he worked at various chemical companies as an environmental health and safety specialist. Marvin?
Thank you, Mike. So I'm here to talk to all the auto body shops out there. So I'm with the Small Business Assistance Office, and our team provides assistance to businesses with regard to South Coast AQMD rules, regulations, and permit conditions. So a list of the services we provided. We provide technical consultation, and this is provided via phone, email, or in person. We will assist you in understanding permit conditions and rule requirements. We will also assist you in developing a VOC record-keeping system. Other assistance we provide is we will provide you with forms, filing fees, and required information for submitting your permit application. We even provide line-by-line assistance to permit application forms. So just call us and we will assist you. If your business is having issues meeting AQMD rules, we will assist you in filing a variance petition with the South Coast AQMD Hearing Board. And if you have any fee issues, we will assist you in fixing that through the fee review request committee. And if you need assistance with payment of current fees, we also provide assistance via payment plan if you are in financial hardship. That is all the services we provide. You could reach us by phone at 909-396-3529 or via email at smallbizassistance@aqmd.gov. That's small, B-I-Z, assistance@aqmd.gov. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, Hamang. Really appreciate getting another
We have a
insight.
question, Mike.
Yes, okay. I was just about to say, we're going to open up some more questions here. It's in the room for you folks in the Zoom.
Marvin, is there any definition now for small business, like what qualifies as a small business?
We help
Is
everyone.
it still less than 10?
We will help everyone. Although there's an official definition through our rules. It's, I think,
I believe it's less than 10 if I remember right.
Well, to receive the small business discount is less than 10 employees and 500K total receipts.
So if I have a non-MSO customer who's opening up a second shop, technically at that point he has 0 employees. Can he qualify?
We will assist you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I know we have different definitions of small business under our Rule 101. I thought the assistance one
Yeah,
might have been
there's-
moved up a
there's-
little bit, so we should check into that because we're looking at that ourselves on another incentive program we're working on. Hello, go
I
ahead.
have one more.
Sure.
If we can touch again on Rule 219 for the exemptions, there are a number of facilities who were installing on previous 219 editions that have then since been given notices to comply or notices of violation. Is there any type of existing grandfather clause or something that allows businesses to operate that were once under an exemption that are now out of compliance? Or is there like a window of opportunity for them to bring that up to?
Unfortunately, there is no, that is not possible. However, I believe they get the discount. I mean, they get the break in the fees when they submit the application. So we
Okay,
won't
so when they
charge-
do submit after receiving the notice, they would be able to claim they thought they were under 219 exemption, and so they wouldn't get fees, the additional
the penalty,
notice fees, right, okay.
the higher fees for
Right, okay.
operating without a permit.
Okay, perfect.
Right now, we have a provision also into 301, Rule 301, about they have a different definition of the business. If you are a first-time operator, also, if you have not been issued a notice of violation, we waive the higher fees for the operating without a permit. But
Okay, good questions here today. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Again, if you're on Zoom, you could do a virtual raise hand.
We do have one other question
We already
online. Question was asked, I would like the auto body shops that are approved to have a sign or certificate outside so that we as a community know that they are in compliance. So Rule 1151 does not have signage requirements currently in place for auto body shops, so there are no signage requirements. However, as I said, we could send out a list of permitted facilities within the area to identify which facilities are permitted auto body shops.
Great. All right, we will do that. Looks like we've got another question from Barbara. Go ahead, Barbara. You should be able to unmute yourself. Barbara Calhoun.
Okay, can you repeat what you just said about from the question that the young lady asked when she was talking about putting something out there so people know? What was you saying? I'm sorry, I missed part of it.
No problem. Go ahead, Heather.
Just that I stated that the rule does not require signage. Some of our rules, especially for some of our toxic rules, may have requirements that a facility put signs outside of their facility. For our Rule 1151 for auto body shops, there are no signage requirements. However, like I'd mentioned before, we do have lists of permitted facilities. So that is a way the community could understand what facilities are permitted to use auto body coatings within their area.
But if the community if the community does not know and they go to one that doesn't have it, then therefore they're jeopardizing themselves and their health. So I understand what you said about that rule. I think you said 1154. There's really not a rule, because how would I know? Well, I would know because I'm going to get it from you, ladies and gentlemen, and I could spread the word. But how do you, ladies and gentlemen, expect our entire community to be aware of which auto body shop has the correct, or that's doing the correct thing and not the wrong thing? I mean, if the health department can give A, B, C, D, E, and F, I understand about the rule. Why can't there be another rule that says you need to have that showing on the outside or the inside of your business? There's always rules, and people are always going to break rules. So I hate rules and I love rules, but no, really, but something that, I mean, I can go to anything and I think they're doing good because I got it from a friend that used this auto body shop, right? And they did a fantastic paint job on their car. And so they say, oh, you need to go to my paint guy. He's good. So I go to him, and there's nothing that tells me that he's not doing it correctly because I see no type of signage. How do we alleviate this problem, this issue for our Black and brown communities?
Yes,
And-
thank you. Thank you for that, Barbara. Really appreciate
Mhm.
that. I mean, it's a multi-tiered approach really for our agency. When the first thing we require everything in our jurisdiction, which is a large jurisdiction, 4 counties, that requires everything that issues an air contaminant or issues into the air contaminant or controls that needs to come in for a permit. So that's the first sort of step. The next one is our enforcement group. So they go out, as we noted earlier, already for random checks that they drop in. They know the permitted facilities, but they also go into the neighborhoods where they check to see if there's activity going on, and they head on in there and they look and they ask for permits. They ask for the checking whether they've actually done that properly. And then in addition to that, you then compound that with, again, these rules and regulations that we're going over today. But finally, to kind of reach out to what you're getting at, which is, what if I have an issue with somebody locally? We have a 1-800-CUT-SMOG phone number. You can call 24/7 and report these concerns that you might have with that. And our enforcement team also does follow-up inspections from that. So it's again, multi-tiered sort of process, but we hope all of that combined creates a more secure environment for enforcement. Any more questions that we have online? I saw.
We do have another hand up.
Okay.
From Guadalupe on the iPhone. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Great.
And a phone that should be star.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Guadalupe
My name is
Rivas,
Guadalupe.
miembro del CSC y
Member of CAC
y miembro de SCOP.
and member of
La pregunta es
My
porque
question is,
hay unos cuadritos de
there's
que
some
afuera de
outside
body shop
of the
o
body shops
tintorerías
or paint shops
tintorerías que dice que es
that
azul,
say
amarillo,
whether it's
rojo.
yellow, blue, red.
Esos cuadritos significa que eso está en revisión, que todo
That
está en
is being
regla, o
reviewed,
qué
everything's in
significa.
order, or what does that mean?
I'm not quite sure I understood the question. What's blue, red, yellow?
No sé a qué cuadrito se refiere.
What is she referring to? I don't know.
Hay unos cuadritos que nos enseñaron
There's some little squares that you guys
en
showed
las clases que nos han
in the
dado,
classes that you guys gave us.
Oh, the
que
regional
eso significa
And basically that
están
this means that you're reviewing
que están siguiendo los pasos
or following the
correctos.
steps
Entonces
correctly.
estoy perdida
So
con
I guess
eso,
I'm lost
si eso
with that.
significa
I don't know if
o
that
no.
means that or not.
Es unos cuadritos que están
It's these
juntos
little
los cuadros.
squares,
Es amarillo,
they're
rojo
yellow,
y azul.
red, and blue.
Flammability?
Somebody just.
Which slide?
I believe you're talking about like if there's like something is hazardous or flammable or something. We don't issue those ourselves, but. Go ahead.
Again, one of those things that we might hear from a speaker.
Yes.
Coming up about how those decals are determined and what the regulations are for those. In fact, I think that's going to be our next speaker in just a moment.
Okay, pues voy a tomar una foto para la
Okay,
próxima.
I'm gonna take a
en el meeting.
picture.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
now.
Sí, para traerlo a la
So I
conversación
can bring
porque
it into the meeting or conversation.
Okay,
estoy
great.
un
Thank you,
poco
Guadalupe. Really
perdida.
appreciate it. We're going to move on to our
Because
next speaker as we enter in our second hour of the workshop. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, our next speaker is Malay Trivedi. Malay is an experienced hazardous materials specialist with Los Angeles County Fire Department's Health Hazardous Materials Division, bringing more than 2 decades of regulatory inspection and environmental health experience to the CUPA program. He has conducted thousands of inspections at hazardous waste generators, tiered permitting facilities, and non-RCRA LQGs. Ensuring compliance with state and federal regulations, including health and safety codes and the U.S. Unified Program Standards. He's a registered environmental health specialist. Malay has served as an EHS 3 in multiple programs, including emergency response, recreational waters, and housing and food safety, conducting high-risk investigations, leading ocean water monitoring, and participating in bioterrorism exercises. He has trained new hires. Malay has built a career protecting public and environmental health through various programs. Malay, please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Michael. All this AQMD, amongst all you AQMD, I forgot I was actually giving presentation. I was just listening to you and I go, I have to get up there and talk now. It's my turn. Just to, thanks for the introduction. I didn't know I wrote that much when I actually sent you, sent you the items. I'm currently with the LA County Fire Department. I am with the Health Hazmat Division. With CUPA, we go out and we do inspection at Autobody about once every 3 years. Probably completed over thousands of routine inspections, not all of them pertaining to Autobody, but quite a bit of them. So I'm actually boots on the ground as well. I've given some technical presentation as well at the CUPA forum and whatnot. So today what I want to touch on is more about hazardous waste that are generated at auto body shops. Next slide. So on the agenda today, I want to go over a few items. One is to be, if you have an auto body shop, you should know whether you're generating hazardous waste or not. You need to know if it's just a waste that you can go ahead and dispose in the trash, or is this something that requires somebody to pick it up because it's hazardous waste. Secondly, paint. I get a lot of questions when I'm out on the field. The paint that I have, is it hazardous or not? And if it is, how do I dispose of it? And paint is not the only thing. You also have other waste streams that are also hazardous waste. So we'll touch base on those as well. And then a few other items on how you can mitigate, reduce, and also other items that we look at when we go out and do inspections at the auto body shops. And lastly, we'll touch on, once you generate this hazardous waste, what do you do with it? Where does it go? And what are some of the options that you may have? Next slide, please. So just real quick, that's an AI-generated photo. And I'm from India, so I had asked AI to make that fire guy Indian. And no matter how many times I asked him, it did not do it. It just couldn't recognize an Indian fire guy. So it could have a buffalo that's flying, but anyhow, so if obviously we all know what Autobody does, so I don't need to go through it. But if you are an auto body shop operator, then you're probably doing one of these 4 items, right? You may be restoring vehicle after some collision, fixing dents and scratches, repainting, and so forth. Next slide, please. So in process of doing those items like a typical auto body does, you're probably using a few of these items, right? Thinner, acetone, primer, paint, maybe some clear coat. There are other items as well. You know, you may have spray gun, you may have paint waste, paint booth filters, rags that you may need to dispose of them in certain way. So I want to go ahead and touch on all of those and how you should be disposing these items. Next slide, please. So in order to know if you're going to go ahead and dispose these items as hazardous waste or just down the trash bin, you need to know what hazardous waste is. How do they qualify for hazardous waste? So without, this is almost like an 8-hour course. And I kid you not, I've taken 8-hour courses on what hazardous waste is. So I have 15 minutes here. So I'm going to kind of get to the point as it relates to the auto body only. So waste is usually just waste, but for it to be hazardous waste, it needs to be identified as hazardous waste. Well, how do you do that? So one is either listed waste. Listed wastes are waste that we already know that are hazardous. Nothing else. They're already there. They're hazardous. They're listed. This comes out of Title 22, by the way, if you're ever want to look into it. Other ones are characteristics waste. So characteristic waste are something that might be ignitable, toxic, corrosive, or reactive. But if you're an auto body shop owner or an operator, most of your waste is probably either hazardous waste because it's ignitable or it's toxic. So how would you identify ignitable? Ignitable is when a waste has a flash point of less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And you would identify toxic. In auto body case, toxic would be something that has heavy metals or just metals in general, but it has to be above the threshold of what's allowable. So focus on those two items as we move down the other slides. Next slide, please. So then the natural question is waste hazardous? Is waste paint hazardous? Well, from the slide that we just looked at, does it contain metals? Does paint contain metals? And is paint ignitable? Does it have a flash point of less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit? Well, it depends, right? It depends on, is it mixed with solvent? Is it a water-based paint? Is it oil-based paint? Is it in solid state? Is it in liquid state? So all of this will help us determine if that waste would be identified as hazardous waste, and then in turn, what we do with it. Next slide, please. So when I go out and I do walkthrough, I get from the operators, when I ask them if there's a drum of waste paint, and they would tell me, well, hold on, my paint is not hazardous waste because it's water-based paint. So therefore it's not hazardous. Or that it's dried out, it's dried paint, and now I can go ahead and throw it in the trash. Okay? So what I would say to that is water-based paint doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have any metals, doesn't necessarily, it could or could not be hazardous, but you can't just determine based on the fact that it's water-based and therefore it's not hazardous waste. And same thing will go with dried out paint, especially if it's oil-based paint. So we'll go into figuring this out in next few slides. Next slide, please. So this is a busy chart, right? But I'll simplify it pretty easily for you guys. So if you're looking at this chart, on the left-hand side is water-based paint. On the right-hand side is oil-based. So let's take a look at the water-based slide first. So if the water-based paint, is it liquid? Yes, it's liquid. Okay, if it's liquid, then is it ignitable? Does it have heavy metals? If the answer to that is no, then it's probably not hazardous waste. If the answer to that is yes, it's probably hazardous waste. Okay, and the same thing would go for all the other ones down the line. Same thing, is it dry? So if the paint is dry, what happened to the solvent? Well, chances are the solvent or ignitable factors in that paint have probably evaporated, right? They probably evaporated, and now you're saying, well, it doesn't have solvent, it's not ignitable, and what happens to the metals? Well, in dried out paint, the way they test, I mean, I don't want to get too technical, but the way they test this is through leachate. They put acid, and then they see if that acid causes leachate to contaminate the landfills or the ground. So that's probably not going to happen if it's dried, right? That doesn't mean that dry paint is not, it's just that it's probably not going to show up as hazardous waste for those reasons. And the same thing I would say for oil-based. Oil-based paint liquid is probably hazardous waste. Just because of it's solvent-based, which is ignitable, oil is classified as hazardous, listed hazardous waste in California. And if it's dry, again, it depends, right? It depends on if it has those items or not. Next slide, please. So if you take the same, and I want you to think almost like an inspector, right? So this is somebody walking in to your establishment and they're looking around, and this is the mind of an inspector. This is what they're thinking. Are those items hazardous waste? And if they're hazardous waste, are they being disposed properly? Well, paint is not the only thing in the auto body shop. You guys have solvent, a lot of solvent-based paint. You have solvent rags, sanding dust, Bondo, water-based paint. You have booth filters. All of those will go under the same sort of principle. And if you look on the right-hand column, you'll see that most of them are either ignitable, highly ignitable, or they have metals, which makes them toxic. Aside, the only thing that doesn't have that would be two exceptions. One would be solvent rags, even though they do have solvent, which makes them ignitable. There are exemptions to that where solvent rags can be laundered, and therefore they don't. And just, I'm sorry, one more. The scrap metal and the empty aerosol cans are probably not going to be hazardous waste as long as they're completely empty. All right, I think, was this the next slide or the slide before? I think you go one forward. No, that's backward, right? Okay, so I think this is the next slide. So based on that information, right, based on the train of thoughts that we just went down, is if these items are ignitable or toxic, how would you know? How would you know if they're ignitable, if they're toxic? You have a couple of different ways to find this out. I've been to a place and the operators would tell me, wait, that's not hazardous waste. I would ask them, well, why do you think it's not? They're like, well, I know it's not. I said, well, based on what? Based on what reasoning do you think it's not hazardous waste? So if you want to make an argument, what I would do, or you want to, obviously check for yourself, because I think most of the time it's just people don't know, right? So you can look at the SDS sheet, safety data sheet. Safety data sheet will list out what's in it. It might even tell you the flashpoint on that. So let's take an example of water-based paint, right? Because we already know the solvent-based paint, solvents are going to be hazardous waste. If you're going to tell me that solvent paint waste is not hazardous waste, that's an easy argument for me to make because I know they are. The ignitable flashpoint is less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Water-based paint, you can look at the SDS sheet and say, well, this paint may not be hazardous. You can ask your Coupa inspector, but remember, what they tell you is what they think based on the information you're giving them, right? They're just trying to assist you. You could ask your haz waste hauler. You could ask the manufacturer where you get the items from and say, is this hazardous waste or hazardous material at that time or not? Or have they done hazardous waste on it? And they can send you a document to prove it. But if you just say, based on what I think, you could say that it's based on generator's knowledge But when we go out and we do an inspection, we find out that it's not, now you're illegally disposing something that's hazardous waste down a waste stream where you're not supposed to. So err in the side of caution. And lastly, and the most simplest way is to do a hazardous waste determination test. If you do that test, you save the document, you won't have any sort of ambiguity at that point. Next slide, please. So, few things to remember, right? Obviously, nobody wants to throw things down the drain. That's not the point. It's just a matter of understanding and knowing certain things that you may or may not know based on all the regulations. Most places I go, I don't think they have an ill intent. They don't know, right? And paint costs a lot of money. So the best thing you could do, obviously you don't want to throw it down because it's a commodity for you. In fact, all the items that you have are commodity. So why dispose of them? So if you can limit it, you can save the leftover and apply it for a smaller job. If you know how much you're getting, get little at a time. All of this thing also helps us because it generates less waste to begin with, less hazardous waste to begin with. So just, if you can remember that, might help you to just generate less hazardous waste to begin with. When we do go out and do our inspections, obviously with Autobody, you know, the haz waste is really the main items that we sort of look at. There's also a hazardous material permit and above ground storage permits and stuff like that. There's recycling and treatment of haz waste as well. But with Autobody, in 15 minutes, I'm going to focus on what happens there the most. So you will have paint waste drums. Make sure the haz waste drums are labeled. Obviously, you would want the labels completely filled out. But one of the main things we look at is the accumulation start date. That's when you start to accumulate that hazardous waste. Most auto body shops are what we call small quantity generators, and they have up to about 180, not up to about, they have 180 days to dispose, get it picked up from the site. And obviously, you want to make sure, sometimes when I'm doing the walkthrough inspection, I'll see cups of mixing paint or clear coat in the trash bin, right? So you want to make sure that you are certain what is going in trash is not hazardous waste. Because the next thing that an inspector will ask for is documentation. If I see a 5-gallon acetone can, I'm suspecting that they're using that acetone can for something that's going to generate hazardous waste. Then my next line of questioning would be, what is happening with that hazardous waste? Where is it going? Then I'm going to ask you to provide some sort of documentation. And if the answer to that is, well, I send it over there and there's no documentation provided, then you could question the idea that are they illegally disposing of hazardous waste. You want to keep the receipts, I shouldn't say receipts, they're called manifest records, bill of lading, for the last 3 years. I think it says greater than 3 years, but it should be up to 3 years. If you have done any sort of lab analysis on that deem it to be not hazardous waste, you can have that ready. You can have your SDS sheet ready. And any other documentation. I think the next slide, please. Next slide, please. So these are alternate places that you could possibly take your hazardous waste to, but you would probably need to check with them. And the research that I did, you have LA City Sand District. I believe they have what they call a program, and I think OC Waters and Recycling does too. It's called VSQG, Very Small Quantity Generator, where a business can get an EPA ID number, they can enroll in the program, and then they can go ahead and take their hazardous waste, I believe, very small quantity generator, so you're not generating more than 27 gallons a month, okay? You could take it there, make sure you have paperwork, that you're enrolled in the system, and I think you have to make an appointment. And if you have paperwork showing that, you know, there's an appointment and there's some sort of paper trail, that's an option. Paint care, I hear a lot about paint care. Well, can I take my paint to paint care? And I don't think it's approved for automotive. So I think it's more for architectural coating. And then your local hazardous waste roundup that they have. And I don't believe that they're for businesses as well. So that limits you to maybe option number one. And I can tell you probably the safest bet is to get it picked up by a licensed hazardous waste transporter. You have a manifest record, you have receipts, you have bill of lading. It's just easier that way. And I believe that's it. Next slide. That might be the last slide. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Malay. Really appreciate that. Very insightful. Once again, any questions? We have something
We do have a
online?
couple questions. We have a
Okay.
question in the chat.
Okay.
Jacqueline is asking about having old paint in my garage and not knowing if it's hazardous or not. How do I get rid of it? If not, the trash cans. Malay mentioned the paint care. While that might not be an option for businesses, it is certainly an option for households. So household paints that you have can be brought into paint care. I can drop a link into the chat so you can find a location for a paint care drop-off spot near you for any of your household paint cans.
I think if I may add, their household roundup may also take it. And they have them, you know, they can just contact their city and they do have programs all the time. I think LA County Sand District may have it, LA County Public Works may have it. So they can also take it there. Yeah, being Autobody, it was more aimed towards, you know, if you're a business owner, but if it's just in your garage, I believe those are good options.
Okay, great. Anything else on the?
Not on this topic, but we did have a little bit of a chat conversation earlier if we want to, but maybe we can ask if there's any other questions on this subject. We do have a hand. Linda Cleveland, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, good evening. I was listening to this presentation and in the real world, this whole conversation has made me very leery of the auto body shops that are in our community. From what I understand, that you go out and inspection maybe every 3 years, but in between time, you could have violators who have been illegally dumping things into our community that's causing health hazards. So how do we go about, I guess, reporting like the illegal shops? Because you guys, you're talking about the shops that are permitted, but in our community, in the real life, a lot of the shops are not permitted. So how do we safeguard our health based on the fact that we have all these illegal shops that are operating in our community?
Yeah, so I believe the question was if there are illegal operations that are not permitted, how do you go about addressing that concern, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have it handy, but I can get Michael a phone number, and we have online a complaint form. You can go ahead and state where it is. We probably just need the address where they exist, and we'll go out and investigate. And if they're doing that illegally and they're generating hazardous waste, or even if they're storing hazardous material, we will permit them. And that happens all the time. I mean, I go out to facilities and I'm doing my walkthrough inspection, and I'll see some other facility nearby, across the street, next to it, whatnot, and they don't have a permit. So then we start probing. But yeah, you can absolutely, make a complaint and we'll investigate.
Right. If the permitting issue again is on the air quality side, we do have our 1-800-CUT smog that again you can call anytime. And I know similarly with the LA County fire that Malay just noted, we would also send someone out and enforce and inspect. So, okay, great. We have another question. It talks about, Heather, do you want me to run and read it?
Sure. So the question was posted in the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a condition listed in permits that requires a facility to display a permit to operate on or near the equipment. Is there any way to simply adjust this condition to also be displayed in the lobby or reception area where the public can see as well?
So, yeah, so just to explain the standard practice of why we would have those permits, near the equipment. For a lot of facilities, there's a lot of variability in our facilities. We we permit over 75,000 facilities, so there's a lot going on there. And so some of those facilities will have a number of equipment. They're located in various areas within the property. Sometimes the property is very large. It could be like we permit places like refineries, for example. And you can imagine the impracticality of having some inspector show up and have to go to a lobby, then literally travel like a mile, way to look at the equipment. So there was the reasonings for those, for the permit to be near there. Some facilities don't have lobbies or reception areas and things like that as well. These are all these factors that we do take into account, and we have those kind of policies, and it does make our enforcement team a lot more efficient, right? They get out there on the site and they see the permit and they see their equipment right there. Remember, equipment's also things like they have a number of boilers of different, maybe duplicate ones, but with different permit conditions regulate them. So again, there's a lot of factors as to why we have that policy, just so we sort of set that record straight there. There's also nothing that precludes a facility on their own to go and make copies of their permit and put it anywhere they want to, including lobbies and what have you, to make it public. Okay, but getting down to the sort of the heart of your question, I mean, this could be something we could look into in the future. It would have to be something we'd have to have it in the rule in order to make it a policy that's required of them to do. We do have it in some other operations and some of our other rules, so we'd have to reintroduce that when the next time we open the rule. So it's a good point. So yeah, we'll consider that. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Chris Dunn with the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Chris Dunn is an automotive program supervisor for the automotive program supervisor 2 for the Bureau of Automotive Repair, Field Operations and Enforcement Division. He's been with BAR for 12 years. Before BAR, Chris was a master diagnostic technician at a Toyota dealership for 14 years. Chris, please go ahead.
Hi, how's it going? So, do you have my presentation available?
We sure do, Chris. We're bringing it up right now.
Great, okay.
The first slide, by the way, says what we do.
Perfect, I see it now. So, at the Bureau of Automotive Repair, we do many things, including license and regulate automotive repair dealers, smog check stations and technicians, and vehicle safety system stations and technicians. We mediate automotive repair complaints, saving consumers millions of dollars each year through refunds, rework, and bill adjustments. We investigate and take disciplinary action against licensees who violate the law. We perform no-cost inspections of collision repairs to help keep consumers and their vehicles safe. We improve road safety by ensuring revived salvage vehicles meet safety standards. And we help keep California's air clean by reducing vehicle emissions. Next slide, please. So we have some different programs that we operate. One of them is the Autobody inspection program, offering no-cost inspections of collision repairs. We have a Cars for Schools program, which provides retired vehicles to schools across California to support hands-on student learning. We have the Consumer Assistance Program, which helps eligible consumers repair smog check failures or retire their vehicles. And the Referee Program, which assists consumers with smog check issues and locating hard-to-find emission parts. Next slide, please. We have our Roadside Emissions Survey Program, which conducts voluntary emissions surveys on California roadways. The data collected helps improve the smog check program and clean air efforts. We also have the smog check program, which helps improve air quality by identifying and repairing vehicles with excess emissions. Within the smog check program is the STAR program, which certifies smog check stations meeting performance standards to inspect high polluting vehicles. And finally, the Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program, which ensures revived salvage vehicles meet safety standards before they return to the road. Next slide, please. So our no-cost collision repair inspection, the inspection, we inspect collision repairs that were performed after the consumer purchased the vehicles and done by a repair shop in California. So the Bureau cannot inspect repairs completed before the consumer owned the vehicle, inspect repairs performed outside of California, or provide a second estimate for repairs. Next slide, please. So when the consumer requests an inspection, a bar representative will contact them to schedule the inspection. The inspection can be done at a location that works for them, like the home or workplace. We'll also check that the repairs were done right. We'll also verify that all repairs listed on the invoice are complete. And if we find any problems, we'll explain the options for resolving the issue. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we do is investigate consumer complaints related to automotive repair transactions between auto shops and consumers. So if anyone has a concern about a shop's work or service and cannot resolve the issues with the shop's management, we encourage them to file a complaint, which they can do on BAR's website by typing in search complaint, and then you can fill out the form electronically. Next slide, please. So Bureau of Automotive Repair has jurisdiction to mediate and investigate complaints involving auto repairs and services, smog check inspections, tire repairs or installation, repairs performed by a tow company or storage lot, warranty or service contract disputes involving automotive repairs performed by a new or used car dealership, and unlicensed and fraudulent activity. Next slide, please. So a general overview of an automotive repair transaction. Automotive repair dealers must comply with the Automotive Repair Act and related laws and regulations. This includes documentation and authorization requirements for repair transaction, such as keeping the consumer informed, providing estimates and invoices to the consumer, performing only the repairs authorized by the customer, and maintaining a record of all repairs performed and parts supplied. Next slide, please. So any consumer can go onto BAR's website and use our auto shop locator and find a specific service type or all facilities located within a city or zip code. You can also search by license. So this is my contact information in case anyone needs to get a hold of me. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. Why don't we open up to see if we have any questions for Chris at the Bureau of Automotive Repair? Is anyone raising their hand or filing something under the chat?
No hands yet. I don't see a chat either.
Okay. I believe we've answered the questions so far that we had on there. I did want to throw out, Barbara, I think it was Barbara, you said that there was a number of questions that you had asked at the last, your last meeting. We couldn't seem to locate what exactly those questions are. So while we're going to continue on with the workshop, if you wanted to circle back with us with any of those, maybe we can get those answered here today. In the meantime, go ahead, Mike. Why don't we introduce our last speaker? And thank you for being so patient, Renee.
All right. So Renee Roberts is a senior environmental scientist with the Department of Toxic Substances Control Regulatory Assistance Office, where she provides regulatory guidance to the households, businesses, and government on California's hazardous waste control laws and regulations. She has a bachelor's in science with an emphasis in microbiology and chemistry and has been with DTSC since 2006 and has been providing regulatory assistance to stakeholders since 2013. Renee is also a licensed paramedic and plays pickleball and rides a mountain bike in her spare time. Sometime soon we'll have to play pickleball together.
Love it.
Renee, go ahead.
Very much. I always like to add a little bit of humor in my intros. Again, my name is Renee Roberts, and I am a senior environmental scientist and senior regulatory assistance officer at Department of Toxic Substances Control, also known as DTSC. We regulate hazardous waste in California, and we work with the CUPAs, such as Malay, the inspector there, in helping them and helping you to understand and maintain compliance with hazardous waste laws and regulations. So today I want to explain some of the things that you can find on our website that can assist you in learning more about hazardous waste. You got the 15-minute version of the 8-hour lecture, and trust me, there's a lot to go over with hazardous waste, and we understand that. So next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Go back one there. Just go back. Yeah. So if you have the ability, go ahead and scan this QR code. It will provide you the link to our Regulatory Assistance Office webpage. And I'm going to go over some of the items that we have on that webpage that will help you find things on our website that are more applicable to generators of hazardous waste, which is what the auto body shops are. Okay, so we do have multiple languages on our webpage. I mean, a lot of languages. I was actually really surprised to see how many are on there. And so on the upper right corner of our website, at least in the laptop or desktop mode, it's on the upper right corner. You can select the language, and it does a really pretty good job. It's Google Translate, and it does a pretty good job of translating our web pages. We actually have moved a lot of our old PDFs into web pages so that the translation tools will help people to understand what they need to know. Next slide, please. There we go. So, so on the Regulatory Assistance Office webpage, you'll see there's 8 boxes right there in the middle of the page. The first one is about ID numbers. So Malay talked about it a little bit. You must obtain and maintain an ID number as a hazardous waste generator. And so you can go by clicking on this, that particular link there. Actually, would you click forward just a little bit on the slide? Yeah, there we go. Each of them will populate the top there. And it will help you to figure out what type of ID number you have. And that will allow you to have your hazardous waste transported by a registered transporter, or if it's small enough quantities, as Malay mentioned, you might be able to self-transport to your local household hazardous waste collection facility or other collection points. So next up on there, whoops, oh, it's all right. We can, yeah, you can keep them on there. Go all the way back. The previous slide. There you go. So the next on there, we have a web page to help you understand more about the wastes you have and whether or not they're hazardous wastes. This is part of what Malay was showing you. This goes really deeper into that and really helps you to understand how to make that determination on the hazardous waste. It is the page will take you to what we call our defining hazardous waste page. And on that, aside from the information on that page, there is a link to our hazardous waste classification training, which really goes in deep and can help you to understand. And depending on how much waste, hazardous waste you generate, you may owe fees to DTSC. The big one that most people are becoming aware of is what's called the generator and handling fee. But that is generally only if you generate 5 tons or more hazardous waste per calendar year. So you may or may not have to owe fees depending on the size of your shop and the amount of waste that you generate. Other fees might also be due, and it's due to things like the number of employees you have. I think it's greater than 50 or 100. There's one type of fee called an environmental fee, and there's other fees that can be payable through this portal, which is the California Department of CDT is Tax and Fee Administration. Pardon me. Well, it used to be the Board of Equalization, and then they merged into this larger administration board. But that link will take you to our fees page, which will explain more on the different types of fees. And then every year, every generator, doesn't matter if you're very small, very large, or everything in between, every generator must complete the electronic verification questionnaire. And it's the window opens generally, it used to be in the summertime. Now it's happening in the spring or late winter. I think this year it's like the end of January and it's open until the end of March. So if you don't do this, though, your ID number will be inactivated and penalties may be assessed. So it's something to be very aware of. The notification generally goes out by email. So make sure your email address is up to date when you obtain your ID number, because that will really make it helpful. Next slide, please. So our generators page has more information for generators. This is kind of a all-inclusive kind of page. It will provide you a lot of different information. We are currently in the middle of updating this page, so check back on this page over the next few months and you'll see big changes that we're making on how to find things. It's actually going to look more like the Regulatory Assistance Officer page. The next little module on this screen is were you impacted by the wildfires? If you were impacted by the Eaton or the Palisades fire or other wildfires, there's information on there that can help you in terms of any hazardous waste that gets generated as a result of these fires and what you can do. And then the second to last one is our contact list. And we've compiled a large list of contacts that can be very helpful. This is mostly contacts within DTSC, but there's other ones, including things like a site called SIRS, which some of the larger quantity generators use to be able to provide documentation to their CUPAs, for example. And then if you need to file an environmental concern or complaint, there was some discussion about, if you see someone dumping or, if you know that someone's not operating properly. We have a link for that as well. And so there's different parts of the California EPA. DTSC is just one of them. And so we handle the hazardous waste side of things, but the Water Board is on there, Air Resources Board is on there. There's other ones as well. And so you can make a complaint based on the type of, or concern based on the type of things you're seeing. So next slide, please. Additional resources we've got here, and I'm sorry these don't have a QR code to link to them, but if you go to our main website and you can look for the word generator requirements, and it will take you to the generator requirements fact sheet. The generator summary chart is really useful. We updated this not too long ago, and it's very inclusive. It used to be only a few pages long, and now it's about 19 pages printed out that really go into what your requirements are, and it talks about where you can find that in Title 22 or in Health and Safety Code, for example, to be able to stay in compliance and what you need to do. And then lastly, there is a section of hazardous waste that is called universal waste. Universal wastes are still a hazardous waste, but they have what we call alternative management standards. So this includes not having to use a registered transporter for these specific types of wastes. These include things like batteries, although automotive lead acid batteries are not included in that. Electronic waste, lamps and light bulbs, non-empty aerosol cans, which you heard about earlier about the empty ones. This helps you deal with the non-empty ones. Some mercury containing devices, so you may have vehicles with mercury switches that you've got to manage, and solar panels. So those are things to be aware of, and that you can have these managed. And sometimes you can literally take these, and UPS might even be able to pick them up, or the post office, depending on the packaging that they're in, for example. So, but these are really nice because it costs less in the long run for you to be able to manage these properly. And these are very common wastes. So next slide, please. And lastly, if you have questions, we do urge you to first contact your Coupa. They are a really valuable and fantastic resource for you. I know people are like, oh, they're an inspector. They're not going to talk to me. They're not going to help me. No, they really want to help you. They don't want to issue violations to you. And they know more about the local requirements. Like there were some examples of, your shop can't be certain locations like schools, things like that. But they understand hazardous waste management. A lot of them also do the fire inspections and things like that. So I can't vouch for where you are physically in the area as to if that's the case. But like I said, they do know the local ordinances really well, and we don't, unfortunately. So if you've already talked with your Coupa and you still have a question that can't be answered, or the Coupa tells you to contact us, you can contact the DTSC Regulatory Assistance Office, and we can assist you. You can reach us on our RAO website, the page that I provided you the QR code for. That QR code is in the presentation materials that are on the AQMD website as well. Or you can contact us by email or by phone. Please note, though, by phone, if you're Spanish speaking, it may take us a little bit to find someone to translate. There's nobody on our team right now that is Spanish speaking. We're hoping to change that in the future, but at the moment, if you can send it in by email, that would be wonderful. If you have any questions, I'm available for any questions at this point.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Really appreciate that presentation and the thoughtful information that you provided for us today. All right, I'm just going to check it out to you guys to see if we have any raised hands or any questions that we've received in the chat or email. Okay. All right, then I think we're wrapping it up here, concluding our workshop. Again, thanks to everyone for carving time out for what we think is a really important forum to translate that information that you've received today when it deals with all sorts of topics. Obviously we just heard about hazardous waste management. We've heard about air quality, and I thought the thoughtful questions that folks had were really, really good ones. I just was informed, however, for those folks in the SLA area, that in your your second quarter meeting earlier this year, after your CSC meeting, this question actually came up regarding locations, Heather, that you mentioned of the Autobody shops in the SLA area or the South LA area. And look up, at that time, they were talking about, to kind of maybe trigger some memory, there was an inspection sweep that was going on at the time. And right after that meeting, an email was sent to all CSC members of SLA that had both the list of those Autobody shops and the map. So if you're good at searching back into your email, I would encourage you to do that because you were actually provided that information. You were also invited to submit some unmarked locations as well in that. So I don't know if that link is still active for that. But however, again, you can call 1-800-CUT-SMOG. On top of that, if you go under our website, we do have FIND, F-I-N-D. It's a facility ID. I don't remember the name now. Anyway, but how it all means. But FIND, you could look this up. And when you cross-reference between those permitted facilities and the FIND program, you can actually find specific information you might be seeking of a particular facility and how they are permitted, et cetera. So I do encourage folks to do that. Again, a reminder that all the presentations you saw today or heard today English and Spanish. They're all available online. This has been webcast today, so yes, we're permanently in the ether to be forever watched. Oh gosh. Okay. We also had about 100 attendees, both between Zoom and as well as here in the room. So that was a really good turnout. And one thing that resonated that Chris mentioned in his or had in his presentation, I don't think he really quite highlighted it, but I highlighted it for you. It says we encourage you to file a complaint or contact us. And as you heard from the Coupa and you heard from DTSD and ourselves, as well as BAR, we have accesses for you to contact us. If you think you have concerns about somebody out there doing something illegal or somebody's not permitted or something doesn't seem right to you, you've got those resources here. Again, all this stuff is online for you to contact us and we can make things better. So finally, I'd like to thank, of course, not only our attendees, but as well as our speakers who took a lot of time out. This is not their regular job even, to create slides for you guys, create great information for you and have this all out for you. So really do appreciate it. And I want to do another last shout out also for all the staff that has helped us in, organizing, uploading files, our IM team giving us this great technical support, our translators as well, providing us the ability to get the communication and communicate with our fellow non-English speaking friends. And that's really very important to keep this dialogue. We all live here together, so we all got to work together. Okay, so that's a wrap, unless anybody else has anything else to add. Well, again, thank you all so very much. Take care out there. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much.